Hello everyone and welcome to the Hilltop Sampler QA Checks demonstration. Today we're covering off the features in the new QA Checks release for Sampler. What QA Checks and Sampler allow you to do are run custom rules over your data. This is run as part of LabMail, so when your lab results come in you can run quality assurance checks across that data and report back into Sampler. You don't have to run checks just across your lab test results, you can also run checks across your run and sample data, but it is run when LabMail is run. The QA checks that run do not receive data for runs that are closed or cancelled. The rules that you run for your QA checks are developed using a Hilltop Python plugin. Today we're not going to be covering off how to develop a Python plugin for Hilltop, but there is documentation online. I'll point you to our guides under scripting and development for developing Hilltop plugins. There is a Sampler QA Checks plugin page that describes what you need to do to develop a QA check plugin. That's part of the Developing Hilltop Plugins guide. There is also some example code online as part of the Hilltop Software Sampler QA Checks demo code that's available on GitHub, and that is linked to from the developer documentation. As a user, you may not need to know the details about how plugins are operating, but if you want to come and check and see that they run, you can check the Sampler log. In the Sampler log, you will be able to see any LabMail runs that tell you when the transfer started, and then you'll see a message that says which Sampler QA check plugin has been found, and then it's going to be called into that plugin. What you're seeing in this log is the QA check plugin is reporting back into Sampler and writing log messages. So these log messages are coming from the plugin, and it's up to the plugin as to what they write there. So when we open Sampler, you can see the results of those QA checks. The first thing you'll notice in the new release is that when you open up the runs, you'll see a new QA checks filter here, and this allows you to filter the runs based on the QA check status. You also notice that there's a QA checks column here, so when we select a particular level to filter on, you can see that that's the QA check status. The other thing that you will notice is that there's this new QA navigation down the bottom. So this QA view is a list of all the QA checks that have been run by all the different QA check plugins that you may have installed. On the left here we have a normal filter. You need to hit apply to apply the filtering, so if I look for particular severity levels, I need to hit apply, and then the QA checks with those severity levels will be shown. If we look at the anatomy of a QA check by selecting one of these, you'll see that there are several attributes to a QA check. First, there's the date that the QA check was recorded. There's the severity, so there's multiple severities that the QA check report can have. It can go from critical, warning, information, or OK. And there's also a resolved checkbox, so you can change the check to resolved or not, which indicates that someone's looked at it, they're happy with that, and they've resolved that issue, and they'll no longer be reported on as a warning. There's also the run information. If the QA check is for a sample, there'll be the sample ID, and if the QA check is for a lab test, it'll also be the lab and the test. The label is used by the plugins to indicate what kind of checks have run, and this allows the plugin to see if it's run that check before for that particular lab test, sample, or run. There's the title for the QA check, and then there is the source, which in this case is the Sampler QA Checks demo plugin. So if we go and have a look at a QA check in closer detail, you can see down here is all the details for the QA check that's been selected. So there's the execution context, which is when it was run, what the severity level is, what the plugin version was that run it. There is also the scope, which is the label for this check is a percentile check, and this is determined by the plugin. Then there's the run, the sample, the lab, and the test. So if I find a check that was run for a sample, you'll see that there's the run and the sample, but no lab test information, and so that's shown down here. There's also the details that the QA check can provide, and that gives you a lot more context about the check. If we have a look at this one, we can see that this is a lab test result. It's checking the thresholds, and you can see that this particular sample, the total phosphorus result exceeds the warning threshold of 0.03. Now how these thresholds are set is determined by your plugin. In the case of the QA-Checks demo plugin, we use a configuration file where you can check what measurements you want to be checking, any thresholds you want to set, but it's really up to the plugin as to how they want to operate. QA-Check labels also allow you to find the kind of check that you are interested in. So if we have a look at this simple run name check, it checks whether the run name is too long based on pre-configured length. And if you look at that and you decide that that's fine and you want to resolve it, you've dealt with it, you can just click the resolve checkbox. Now once you've checked the resolved, you can uncheck it again and that will unresolve it. But when you do so, you'll be prompted to make sure that's what you want to do. You can also check for resolved and unresolved issues. What the resolve will also do will allow you to change the results, so when you come and look at the runs, you can see that all the QA check issues under that run have been resolved. In this particular instance for this run, there was only the one run level QA check report added. If we go and have a look at a run that has multiple QA checks reported, we can see what's there. The first thing that you might notice is that QA checks for samples that have issues are showing this asterisk here. Now the QA checks aren't visible by default, so you'll need to go to the view and choose the QA checks, and then all the QA checks reported against the sample and the lab tests in the sample and the run itself will be shown in this panel here. Now if we switch between different samples, you'll see different QA checks. So this particular sample, there are no QA check reports back on this sample or its lab tests. If we go and have a look at this sample here, you can see that there's multiple QA check reports for this sample. We can resolve them all. And once we resolve them all, you'll see the asterisks disappear. Now if you unresolve it, it'll ask you again if you really want to do that, and then the asterisks will reappear. So this is an indicator whether that QA check has been resolved or not. It also shows up a resolved or unresolved by the asterisk in the title here. So if I resolve it, the asterisk is gone, and you'll know that those QA checks have all been resolved. Now if you go back and look at the run, this doesn't show resolved because not all QA checks under this run have been resolved. Once you resolve all the QA checks under this run, the QA check status here will be showing as resolved, as you can see down here. So if we go and have a look at this one again, you can see there is only one QA check report. There's no QA check reports against any of the samples, just the run level, and that has been resolved already. So that is why that's showing with the resolved status. Now if we go and have a look at this run, you can see there are some results back, and there's a QA check status of critical. If we go and have a look at that check, you can see there's multiple QA checks showing here for this particular sample, and there is also a sample level check that's reporting on missing results. And there are also lab tests QA check reports here. Lastly, the QA checks panel can be undocked if you want to look at it on another screen, and you just need to go down here to the center and put that here, and you can undock it. You can also move it to the size that you would like. You can also close it and bring it back again by going back to the View menu and choosing QA checks. Lastly, QA check reports don't show in the main QA check report view if the run is closed or the sample is closed. So if we go and have a look at this run and we open up and we change the status to close and we save that, when we go back to the QA report, you'll see that that QA check is no longer there. If you go back in the run, you'll see that the QA check report is there for historical purposes, but it won't be showing in the main QA check report view.